Welcome to a brand new episode of the Jampack Report today for January the 7th of 2020. And let me tell you, we've got some news to dive into today. Of course, for those that don't know, this is a daily gaming news podcast brought to you every single weekday on YouTube and podcast services around the world. So if you enjoy the show, you like what you see, be sure to hit that subscribe button and keep yourself updated and in the know as soon as the news hits. Every single weekday. I mean, I'm not going to put out a breaking news story just willy-nilly. I have a day job. What do I look like? Some kind of on-the-fly gaming news service? No. Follow people on Twitter, man. That's what I do. However, today we have news from the Consumer Electronics Show 2020, including the PS5 logo finally being revealed. It's earth-shattering, mind-boggling. It looks exactly like you would expect it to look. But on top of that, Sony has released a new PS4 and PSVR sales data at CES, showing off just how big this console generation has grown to be. Then, we thought we got a look at the back of the Xbox Series X, but it turns out AMD didn't show us anything at all. They used a fake concept. Yikes. Then Alienware has unveiled a brand new Nintendo Switch influenced PC setup. It's a handheld. Looks pretty interesting. On top of that, to compete with Concept UFO, the Alienware thing, you do have a brand new Switch model launching in 2020 according to industry reports. And finally, the God of War sequel could focus on Kratos and Faye. That would be interesting, but we get the scoop from creative director Cory Barlog when he suggests a future game for the PlayStation series. And that is pretty much our lineup for today's show. Again, jam-packed with tons of the biggest news from the industry. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into it. First off, Sony's CES 2020 briefing brought with it some PlayStation 5 news, though it was not much. Sony's Jim Ryan appeared on stage to reveal the PlayStation 5 logo, and here it is. There it is. Ryan also spoke briefly about some of the features of the PlayStation 5, including 3D audio, adaptive triggers for the new controller, a faster SSD to improve loading times, as well as ray tracing and an Ultra HD Blu-ray drive. All of these features were already announced. Ryan concluded his segment by saying further specifics about the PlayStation 5, including the game lineup and other features, will be announced at a later date. If history is any indication, Sony may share more PlayStation 5 news soon. As you may remember, Sony officially announced the PlayStation 4 back in February 2013, 1 month after CES that year. The PlayStation 5 launches in holiday 2020 alongside Microsoft's own next-generation console, the Xbox Series X. Keep checking back with GameSpot for more on the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. Of course, that applies to me as well. We'll be talking about it over the course of the next few months. But there you have it. That is the big logo itself. That's what you can get. That's the big kahuna. Of course, it's pretty much what you would expect it to be. It is the PlayStation 5 in all of its glory. There isn't really much you can do when it comes to making a brand new iteration of a console. Of course, whenever it comes to branding, you pretty much build on the foundation you've already laid down. So if you thought this was going to be some kind of revolutionary branding design, no, it's simply not. Unless they didn't put the point on the 5, then it would have been PSS. It would have looked weird. So this is pretty much the official logo for the PlayStation 5, and you can expect this to be on pretty much every major YouTuber's channel over the course of the next 24 hours. But with that being said, good to know we finally have a definitive nailed-down version of the PlayStation 5 logo. Of course, up until now, we've all been using the ones that have been on various Google sites, fan-made sites, etc. But here we have it, the official, final version of the PlayStation 5 logo. Much like the PlayStation 4, which is selling very well. Sony has released a new PS4 and PSVR sales data at CES 2020. During CES 2020, Sony showed an infographic featuring new sales data for PlayStation-related hardware and services. This puts PS4 sales at 106 million, up about 3 million units from late 2019, according to Sony's official figures. Additionally, PSVR sales have increased by roughly 1 million units in the last year and now sit at 5 million. The total number of PC VR headsets assumed to be in the wild is comparable to this, so Sony is holding steady on that front. How does this mean PS4 is doing compared to its peers? Well, 106 million console sales puts it significantly ahead of its estimated figures for the Xbox One, with roughly double the total units sold. That data is similar for Switch units, though Nintendo's plucky console is much younger by contrast. It also thoroughly cements the PS4 sales ahead of the original PlayStation, locking in second place for the best home console sales of all time. The PS4 still needs to ship quite a few more units to topple the greatest selling PS2, which sits at 155 million units sold. Other handhelds also dominate the higher spots, but it's still not a bad place to find yourself in during a console generation. And yes, the guy at DualShockers is a numbers geek. While it's also interesting to consider, what is also interesting to consider, is that 1.15 billion PS4 games have been sold. That is a pretty substantial figure that dwarfs available Nintendo Switch data. It could also suggest that PS4 owners are buying a lot more individual games per console. Given the size of my personal PS4 library, I don't find that hard to believe. As for the 38.8 million PlayStation Plus subscriber count, that's perhaps the only area that is lagging behind the competition for Sony. The last official figures for Xbox Live subscribers showed them at almost double that. The success of the Xbox Game Pass has probably only swelled that number, despite Microsoft no longer posting their own figures. I can imagine this is something Sony will want to address coming into the next console generation if they hope to compete with that service. Speaking of which, there was also a brief mention of the PlayStation 5, including a few features of the hardware and the PS5 logo. We just discussed that, so we have some pretty big figures here to break down. Of course, first and foremost, 106 million PS4 units sold. That is mind-boggling. Now, the question for a lot of people, will it be able to hit that 155 million of the PS2? And quite frankly, it all depends on the PS5 launch, and it depends on the cross-generational compatibility and capability, I should say, as well. Because if the PS5 hits and is okay, if it hits and it does show promise, but the games are still available on the PlayStation 4, then it might make more sense for a lot of people to go buy a PS4 Pro or a PS4, just a regular PS4 Slim. And so if that is the case, then this could very well push the sales of the PlayStation 4 well past the 151 million. But still, that's a big chunk of consoles. That's not something that is likely to happen. It's possible, but not probable. Now, with the PSVR, with 5 million out in the wild, that's pretty impressive considering that PSVR and virtual reality as a whole are still very young parts of the gaming community. They show promise and they have shown growth, but they aren't going to be, blowing out 10 million, 20 million, 30 million units. It's just something that's going to take a while to take off, if it will in fact take off. So with PSVR still being integrated, hypothetically, according to reports, into the next generation of PlayStation, then it could still grow and evolve. Of course, we have Dreams coming out on Valentine's Day, which has just gone gold. That's a pretty big deal. So that's a big PSVR game. But at the same time, I suppose we will have to wait and see just how well VR continues to perform. Now, on top of that, I do want to also mention here that 1.15 billion PS4 games have been sold, showing that people are playing more games on each individual PS4. That makes sense to me. I've bought more games on my PS4 than I probably have on any other console generation. In addition to that, I think people are able to experiment more with more affordable prices on the PlayStation Store. I feel like that's something a lot of people overlook. With the most recent holiday sale, those prices were very, very good. And so when people are browsing the PlayStation Store, they're more likely to get something that is on sale, and if the prices are more aligned or better than what you can get at your GameStop or local mom and pop shop, it just simply makes sense. But on top of these, 38.8 million PS Plus subscribers. Oh, that's a little bit of a low number considering you've got such a large install base of the PlayStation 4 itself. And I think that if Sony is going to be competing with Xbox when it comes to their live services approach, they're really going to have to beef up their offering for PlayStation Plus. Yes, the games are almost always better. The PlayStation Plus free games for the month are times and times better than what's offered by Xbox Live Games with Gold, but bundle it in with PlayStation Now, bundle it in with some other new service that you put out. Do something unique to really get people to come and say, if I have a PS4, I need PlayStation Plus. Because if they're just playing NBA or Madden or even just playing this year's Call of Duty campaign, by all means, they don't need PlayStation Plus. You have to make people need it. And so I think that's where PlayStation is beginning to fall behind. Make no mistake, 38.8 million, still a significant amount of PlayStation Plus users, but at the same time, it could always be better. So I'm hoping for integration with the PlayStation Now side of things, but you could always have a tiered system where you do have PlayStation Plus Basic or Classic or whatever, and then you have the new one that bundles things together. Maybe you could call it Ultimate, PlayStation Plus Ultimate. I don't think that name's being used, he said facetiously. However, speaking of Xbox and their lineup, AMD just admitted it showed us a fake Xbox Series X render, a major oops. Now, originally, This was going to be on today's episode as we now look at the back of the Xbox Series X and see that it has these specific ports. However, unfortunately, that's not the case. Microsoft revealed its Xbox Series X console last month, but the company strangely did not show off the rear of the device. For a few hours today, we thought that had changed during AMD's CES 2020 keynote. The chipmaker revealed what appeared to be the rear of the Xbox Series X, briefly showing off all of its supposed ports. But while it initially looked like the Xbox Series X would include 2 USB-C ports and 2 HDMI ports, AMD has just admitted it actually used a fake render during its presentation. The Xbox Series X imagery used during the AMD CES press conference was not sourced from Microsoft and does not accurately represent the design or features of the upcoming console, explains an AMD spokesperson in a statement to The Verge. They were taken from TurboSquid.com. TurboSquid provides 3D models, and it appears that someone at AMD used one of the many renders available of the Xbox Series X on that site. One in particular includes the same rear ports found in AMD's presentation. It is an embarrassing mistake for AMD to make, especially when Microsoft purposefully did not reveal the rear ports during its unveil video last month. Microsoft will be including a regular USB-A port on the front of the Xbox Series X, though. The Series X will include a custom-designed CPU based on AMD's Zen 2 and Radeon RDNA architecture. Microsoft is also using an NVMe SSD on Xbox Series X, which promises the boost load times. Xbox Series X will also support 8K gaming, frame rates of up to 120 FPS in games, ray tracing, and variable refresh rate support. Microsoft is planning to ship the Xbox Series X holiday 2020. AMD's rear ports mistake comes just hours after Xbox chief Phil Spencer revealed the Xbox Series X APU on Twitter. Spencer changed his display picture to a chip of Project Scarlet, the codename for the Xbox Series X. The chip itself does not reveal much more than we already know about the Series X, but it includes an 8K stamp, which suggests Microsoft will target this resolution at some point with its next-gen console. We knew that already. However, this was a big flub, unfortunately. Of course, there is the image that people have been talking about. Of course, you have your, looks like Ethernet, then optical audio. I think that's what that's called. Then 2 USB-Cs, 2 HDMIs, and a power input right here. So, unfortunately, it seems this is not going to be the full lineup of ports, or perhaps it's completely and totally inaccurate. Personally, though, I was thinking about this on the way home last night after I had read the news. This is something that I feel I kind of thought might be a little bit off, because I would be shocked if you are supporting all of these PC-esque features to not include some kind of DisplayPort compatibility for the Xbox Series X. And for those that don't know, DisplayPort is pretty much the best way to experience video on modern PC gaming monitors. It is smooth, it has a higher refresh rate, etc. It is just the cream of the crop. And so if you are marketing the Xbox Series X to the prosumer, if you're marketing it to the professionals, the ones that want the best of the best, the biggest of the biggest, then a DisplayPort is kind of expected at this point in the game. Especially considering the Xbox Series X is by all means just simply a PC. It looks like a PC tower, it just has a controller, you can plug in a mouse and keyboard. There's no reason not to call it a PC with a custom UI. That's just simply what it is. But we don't know exactly what's going to be on the back of the console. However, more news should be coming soon. And at the very soonest, you'll know holiday 2020, right? Haha. However, what's this thing? That's right, it's a PC Nintendo Switch. Alienware unveils Concept UFO, a handheld PC prototype heavily influenced by the Nintendo Switch. At this year's Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, Alienware introduced something unexpected, Concept UFO, a handheld gaming PC that draws heavy inspiration from the Nintendo Switch. The unit even features detachable left and right pieces that can be connected to create a controller that just happens to look like a UFO. Alienware is not revealing hardware specifics, discussing things like battery life, and won't even comment on whether its prototype will actually become a real product. What Alienware is showing is a unique vision for where PC gaming could go. Just picture being able to play some of your favorite PC games on a device like this. The prototype runs Windows 10, weighs roughly 2 pounds, and features an 8-inch 1200p display. The controller is connected to it through magnet strips. The screen is equipped with a back-mounted kickstand and can be extended when the controller is removed. USB-C ports on the unit can be used for a variety of things, including connecting a keyboard and mouse. That's right, you can connect a keyboard and a mouse, and there are a couple more images to show you exactly what you could be playing with here. This is kind of cool, not gonna lie. CES showgoers can head to Alienware's booth to test out Rocket League, F1 2019, and Mortal Kombat 11 on this exciting prototype, but what do you think of Alienware's vision of the future of PC gaming? Personally, for me, this is kind of neat. I won't even beat around the bush with it. Will it come to market, though? That's kind of my big question. The only way this could be a huge success, and I'm saying this is the only way, is if the user interface was good, the way you buy games was good and completely and totally fleshed out, and on top of that, it ran well. That's really what it comes down to. Because I think there is a space for this. I think that the Nintendo Switch has shown that people are still very interested in getting mobile gaming. I think that, of course, in the past couple of years, we saw a bit of a lull before the Nintendo Switch whenever people said, hey, people don't play games on the go anymore. The PlayStation Vita was ultimately abandoned. The 3DS held strong, but it was ultimately marketed to kids, and so people thought, hey, adults don't play games. I think this shows that at least Alienware is tuned in enough to know that that's not necessarily the case. There are plenty of adults out there still playing games on the go, especially considering so many people commute these days, that it just kind of makes sense to offer something. Anything at all. So if you did want to get in on this, of course, if you were at the Consumer Electronics Show, by all means, number one, I am jealous. Number two, you can try it out for yourself if you wanted to see if it's something you might be interested in picking up. But an 8-inch 1200p display certainly sounds interesting to me, and I would love to hear your thoughts on exactly what you think about this puppy right here. However, you could be seeing some competition between Alienware and Nintendo because a new Switch model is reportedly launching in 2020. Production will reportedly begin early this year. Nintendo is working on an updated Nintendo Switch model to be released sometime in 2020, according to Taiwanese electronics newspaper Digitimes. Digitimes reported that the new Nintendo Switch model will be released in mid-2020, with production beginning at the end of the first quarter, which is sometime around March. The news lines up with a previous report from Wall Street Journal tech reporter Takashi Machizuki. Machizuki reported in August that Nintendo has ideas for further updates to the Switch lineup after those two models to make the platform's lifecycle long. According to the Digitimes report, Nintendo intends to release the new Switch model with a magnesium alloy body and an update to the CPU. Machizuki's August report outlined Nintendo's intention to release two new Nintendo Switch models, the updated Nintendo Switch with a better battery and the handheld-only Nintendo Switch Lite, which were released in August and September respectively. There is no concrete information regarding the potential upcoming model, but some are predicting Nintendo's next console as a Switch Pro device. Dr. Serkan Toto, CEO of game industry consultancy Katan Games, told GI.biz there is no doubt in his mind that Nintendo will launch a Switch Pro in 2020, specifically after the summer holidays to counter the rollout of the PS5 and the next-gen Xbox later in the year. Toto suggested the retail price of $399 with 4K support, bigger cartridge sizes, and of course, beefed up components. Others are skeptical, however. IHS market technology analyst Piers Harding-Rolls told GI.biz that the likelihood of a Switch Pro device has significantly diminished since the launch of an improved flagship Switch and the Switch Lite. He also believes 2020 will be Nintendo's best year for Switch hardware sales since its launch. Nintendo of America spokesperson told Polygon it has nothing to announce on this topic. The original Nintendo Switch was released in March 2017, but the updated version with increased battery life began rolling out in August 2019, and since release, Nintendo has been criticized for malfunctioning Switch controllers, otherwise known as Joy-Con drift, which is associated with analog sticks registering movement without player input. In 2019, a class action lawsuit was filed against Nintendo of America over the Joy-Con malfunctions. An update filed in September 2019 added the Nintendo Switch Lite to the lawsuit, suggesting Nintendo had not improved the malfunctioning parts. For a while, Nintendo was offering to fix or replace problematic Joy-Cons for free. But of course, we now have the new rumors swirling about another new Nintendo Switch model. And so the question is, will this actually be the case? And I think that it's possible. But I kind of side with the analyst that said this is something that has diminished in possibility because of the fact that we have a new model of the Nintendo Switch that hit market in late 2019. Not the Nintendo Switch Lite, the updated model of the original Nintendo Switch. And so with that, technically, you do have 3 different versions of the Nintendo Switch out right now. You have the OG model that launched in 2017, you have the new updated battery life version of that, and then you have the Switch Lite. And so another model on top of that could potentially make sense. I understand where they're coming from with the idea of putting out a new model to counter the PS5 and Xbox Series X rollout. That does make sense, but alternatively, are they going to wait for that? Is that going to be something that launches this holiday as well? I suppose we will just have to wait and see. It certainly would make sense though, because again, you have all of the hardware hype building around PlayStation and Xbox. Nintendo's kind of left out in the cold, and so to put out a brand new handheld would certainly make sense, even if it is something of a Switch Pro. 4K support, that'd be a pretty big deal, but can Nintendo pull that off? I suppose we will see this holiday. But God of War's sequel could focus on Kratos and Faye, according to game director Cory Barlog. God of War creative director Cory Barlog has suggested a future game in the PlayStation series could explore Kratos' meeting with his wife Faye, whose funeral set in motion the chain of events that make up the driving narrative of Sony Santa Monica's 2018 PS4 exclusive. Speaking in a new interview to PlayStation Access, Barlog's comments on his desire to explore more of Faye's backstory can be heard around the 37 mark in the video below, which, be warned, contains full spoilers for God of War's ending. Faye was the one I identified with the most, explains Barlog. You get to understand that she has way more power than all of them and is actually the controller of so much in this universe. That way, when we build this up, to when you actually get to see this, and I don't know where we're going to tell this or when we're going to tell this, but I really want to tell the story of Kratos and Faye meeting. Of course, the now celebrated game developer has also expressed interest in heading to ancient Egypt for a potential God of War sequel, while recent job listings from Sony Santa Monica suggest Kratos could be traveling to Japan for his next adventure, which has all been but confirmed by a number of previous teasers. With the PS5 scheduled to release later this year, anything could be on the cards for everyone's favorite half-deity, and here's hoping Barlog gets his wish to make a meet-cute with one of the most emotionally stunted gods in Greek mythology. Exciting times for God of War fans. Of course, 2018's God of War, phenomenal. I would say possibly the best game that I played this generation. It looks beautifully, it runs beautifully, especially on the PS4 Pro. And on top of that, the story is just phenomenal. Really, really well done. Possibly one of the best games that I've ever played. But cannot wait to see what happens with this one. Kratos, phenomenal protagonist on top of that. Would love to see more of his backstory fleshed out. What happened between the Greek transition into Norse mythology? What was going on during that time? Now the question here is, ancient Egypt? Japan? Okay, why not? You know, everybody was speculative whenever the Norse mythology was brought into play, but considering that we'd had that and it worked out very well, I don't see why not. So hopefully we will hear more about this. I don't think it's going to be a launch title if this is in fact happening. I don't think we're going to be seeing God of War 2 or whatever they end up calling it launching this holiday. I think that's going to be at next summer, earliest, probably even further out. 2022 makes more sense in my opinion. That's a 4-year gestation cycle, makes pretty good sense to me. But with that being said, that rounds out today's episode of the Jampack Report. Of course, if you enjoyed this one, be sure to drop me a like down below and let me know what you think about the news we covered today. Are you going to be getting a PS5 because of that edgy, groundbreaking logo? Or on top of that, what do you think about the PS4 and PSVR sales numbers? Would love to see your thoughts on those, or perhaps the concept UFO. Interesting stuff, to say the least. But I will be back tomorrow for a brand new episode of the Jampack Report, and until then, you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon, and peace.